Destiny 2 wrapped up its Light and Darkness saga with the final shape last June, which managed to tie together and put a bow on a nearly 10-year saga that many found to be a great send-off and endpoint for their time with the series. After this release, Bungie had two options. One, they could go ahead and they could announce that all work on Destiny 2 would cease and they would go ahead and move to a Destiny 3, or the second option, that would see them continue the live service and story of Destiny 2 for the foreseeable future. That second option was chosen by Bungie, but that wasn't met without a lot of uncertainty. For the first time in 10 years, we would be embarking on a brand new journey and story together, and Bungie themselves were going through a whole lot of uncertainty with layoffs, cancellations, and the controversies surrounding Marathon, which was supposed to be their next big thing and has since been delayed indefinitely. So all eyes have essentially turned to Destiny 2 and the Edge of Fate to see what it can do to help out Bungie, as well as bolstering player numbers back up from some pretty dire lows that we've seen over the last year. And I make this review as someone with over 2,600 hours in the game. I absolutely love Destiny and its world, but I'm also willing to admit that things haven't been the best over the last year for the game, and my hope with the Edge of Fate, like any other expansion, is that it will come along and it'll change up the gameplay in the systems in meaningful ways, and more importantly, help set up that next saga of storytelling. What's going to be that big hook that keeps me coming back for each release? Those are the big things that I wanted answered here with this expansion, and after finishing the Legendary campaign, world tiers, and side quests, I've really enjoyed what we've got here, but it doesn't come without a few pain points. I think the power delta being reworked here is a big step forward and kind of a big learning curve for us as well. The gear and the items have also essentially been reworked, and different skill distributions and values, so it's a lot of learning and adjustment period for us, the players, and Bungie themselves have also stated that this is going to be the largest systematic overhaul for the game since Forsaken. But I do wonder if this release will be enough for most people to jump back in, or if it has the ability to garner new interest for players who might be jumping in for that first time. Along with the changes to content delivery and seasons, I'm not really sure how I feel about those aspects of the game right now, and I do worry about the long-term sustainability of the Portal system. But what is for sure is that the Edge of Fate is shepherding Destiny 2 into its next saga and beyond.
Return.
If you do enjoy the video, consider dropping it a like. So you might ask, what has changed with the release of the Edge of Fate? If you're someone like me that's been playing Destiny 2, you might have gotten into a groove with how you've played the game or went about consuming the content the game has to offer. Here with the Edge of Fate, Bungie has looked at changing up the way you interact with its core systems and how you want to go about obtaining that sweet, sweet loot. The biggest thing that you're going to notice right away when you log in is that your power level is gone. Now don't get too excited, power level's still here, but the power delta has essentially been reset. Everyone is now on a level playing field, and for years, players have been asking for that power delta to be removed or actually make it meaningful in some way. Well, now here it does, but I will say that the way that they've scaled the power delta and putting you at a cap in some activities can seem kind of pointless at times. Because if you're just going to put me at a predetermined level or set my power to whatever you want it to be, what's the point in grinding and getting that level high enough? Another aspect of the game that you're going to notice right away within those first few missions on Kepler and in general is going to be the new gear that you're going to come across. Gear now has tier levels ranging from 1 to 5, usually denoted by the little dots on the gear pieces, each tier granting its own bonus to perks that come enhanced, and the armor has also been greatly changed, with stat distributions now leaning into 3 categories instead of being spread out amongst all the different character stats. Character stats themselves have also seen a big rework, allowing for higher build numbers, no longer capping you at the 100 threshold, and new categories like health and weapons have been introduced. Weapons have also seen this change with the tier system, with different amounts of enhanced perks the higher the tier the weapon is. All these changes I think are great, and I think that they did take a little bit of time to get used to as I was working my way through that legendary campaign. And if you've got a decent build, I don't feel like you absolutely need this tier 5 or tier 3, tier 4 loot right away, and it's something that you can focus on for down the line, more of an aspirational goal to grind for. And as of right now, I do think it is pretty rare to get those tier 4 and tier 5 drops. It's still very early days of this new power and armor 3.0 system, and I'm wondering how they're going to scale this moving forward, because I do worry that while you may get a sick roll of a weapon, you'll worry that if it's not tier 5, it's basically worthless. Other things like the portal have been added with the Edge of Fate, which is also where you're going to be grinding for lots of this new gear and weapons to level up your power, but that is something that I'll talk about later in the video as it pertains to the end game grind that was introduced. So one thing that Bungie has went ahead and done this year is that they've shaken up the formula in how they're going to deliver Destiny 2 expansions for the foreseeable future. Unlike past years where we've only gotten one paid release a year, now we're switching to a 2 paid expansion pack, with the Edge of Fate being the first to launch on July 15th and Renegades being the second one, due out December 2nd, which is supposed to be their Star Wars inspired expansion, with subsequent free seasons in between those paid releases. I'll go ahead and I'll throw an infographic up here on the screen so you can see what's coming to the game in the next few months. I do believe this is going to be a bit of an adjustment curve for those hardcore players with how they are going to consume a lot of that content, because I feel like a lot of these expansions and stuff, we were also had these seasons to supplement them and how you would go through playing them. I'm curious to see how they handle those free updates and how they lead into those subsequent paid releases, or if they're going to stand on their own, but I am getting a little bit ahead of myself here. Here in the Edge of Fate, we receive a mysterious signal from the far reaches of the galaxy that leads us to Kepler. And here we learn Kepler is home to a lost civilization called the Ionians, a splinter cell of Fallen, one really out of place human named Lodi, and the former emissary of the Nine, Orin. How all of these things tie together is the mystery and the big crux of the narrative as you progress that plot, and I enjoyed it for the most part. At first, I was not a big fan of the new destination, Kepler. It's all connected in this main center area, and then essentially breaks out from that main point in the map. You also don't have access to a sparrow while you're traversing this weird, pulsating, gooey map. And when Bungie was first teasing and talking about the Edge of Fate, one of the first and biggest things that they kept mentioning and boasting was that it was going to be a Metroidvania experience in the way that you go about exploring and how you would consume the story. While the second point about the story really isn't done much outside of that opening section, a lot of the time when you are exploring Kepler, you are going to come across areas that you aren't going to be able to access till you have a certain destination ability. These range from the Matter Spark ability, which allows you to turn into this little ball like something out of Metroid Prime, and then you have the Matter Morph ability, which takes the slot of your melee, allowing you to reshape and move designated areas around the map. And then lastly, you have the Relocator teleportation device, which is this big cannon, and it allows you to essentially bounce a shot off all these lasers and plates and then teleport you to a certain location. While all these abilities are cool and can be interesting, I think the campaign has a heavy reliance early on with how much you use them, and more specifically, Matter Spark. Now let me just say, some people are going to love it, some people are going to hate it. As the campaign went on, I did start to like it, and it did grow on me by the end of the post-game. And once you finish that main campaign, it does completely replace your Sparrow, and you have access to it at any time. There's also further upgrades that you can unlock for it as well that starts health regen and reload your weapon, so it's a cool thing to upgrade and go as you progress throughout those world tiers as well. The actual process of playing through the campaign I thought was fun for the most part. I thought the environments all looked great, and I was pretty hooked on the narrative. I think that was the biggest part that kept me going, was the narrative, which I will talk a little bit about later. But the part that kept pulling me out the most, I would say, was how spongy these enemies were here in the Legendary campaign. Some of these fights, man, just felt like they were a slog to get through at times, and eventually I just resorted to sitting in the back of the map with a scout rifle just to get it done. And that's not just the case on Kepler. A lot of the enemies across the board have felt weird since this update, and the sentiment around the enemy tankiness is definitely a hot topic, and something Bungie have stated they are looking at lowering the power level across the board for some activities and bigger sweeping changes. So from a gameplay and how you play through that Legendary campaign, I really enjoyed what I experienced, but I think that there are a lot more parts of it that were frustrating or irritating than previous experiences. But as a whole, I do think that the Legendary campaign experience was solid for the most part. Now, let's talk about the story a little bit. I will be talking about spoilers for the story and my thoughts of it, so if you'd like to avoid any spoilers, I'll put a timestamp up on the screen so you can fast forward to that. I'll start this off by saying I really liked the narrative of this expansion, and I say that as someone who was absolutely terrified before this release. From a narrative perspective, this is probably easily a top 5, maybe even a top 3 expansion when it comes to just the narrative alone. While the location of Kepler is something that did take a little bit of time to grow on me, that character of Lodi, who you're introduced to right away, is someone that grew on me. One of the most likable yet mysterious characters that we've met in a long time. He's stranded on Kepler amongst the Ionians, who are this lost colony of survivors, and you actually don't get to see much of them because they're all covered up in this metallic armor, and the dialogue is mostly text conversations, which I think is very reminiscent of No Man's Sky. We learn along with the Ionians that he's been trying to fix time and that there's a issue with the singularity or a black hole that is surrounding the planet, and he's trying to fix that and save everyone. And throughout the course of this campaign and throughout the course of the story, you actually learn that Lodi is a pre-collapse, pre-traveler human. The way that he's able to convey that fish out of water attitude I thought was great, because he has no fucking clue what has happened to Earth, how long we've been gone. His response to everything I thought was so refreshing.
Just like that, there was an apocalypse, and it's ancient history, and that's it. Didn't someone think to etch a date In a stone or something helpful? There's no time capsules, no bunkers, just gone?
Because everyone that we've come to meet in this world is just used to the Traveler, the collapse, everything, and to see that he's just like, the world ended, his response I thought was just really great, and the actor for Lodi I thought did a fantastic job. Ikora is also another huge role this go around, but you also are going to notice that her voice actor has changed for the third time. This was unfortunately due to the voice actor strike, with her role temporarily being recast with the great Deborah Wilson taking over, and I think that she did a great job, but it is going to be very jarring if you don't know about this beforehand.
I think it's safe to say this is what's disrupting our beacons.
Bungie have stated they are in the process of re-recording all of her lines with Mara Junot, who is the second actress of Ikora, now that the voice actor strike is over, and I will say it is a great alternative to the past couple of seasons where we've actually had dialogue that was just outright missing and would be subtitled at the bottom of the screen for some characters. And it sucks because we learned so much cool shit about Ikora in this expansion. It's actually some of the most pivotal information that I think we've learned about any Guardian in some time. Through Lodi, we learned that her and Lodi were actually colleagues together at the same TVA-looking organization before the Traveler even showed up, and it was the Nine who actually killed her in her human form so that she would show up here as a Guardian one day. Like, could you imagine if you've lived your whole life just to have some higher power being tell you that this was all part of their great grand plan? Like, what kind of mind trip would that be? And it really put a lot of events in Ikora's life in perspective and the grander scheme of things about choice and fate. I think that was a really great thing that they did. The actual big bad of this expansion is a fallen named Lavask. Personally, I thought he was fine. Nothing special, nothing bad. I would say I equate him probably to like Aramis. I thought his voice acting was pretty good. His lines gave me a good chuckle at times, but I don't think there's anything really out of him that I'll be remembering outside of this expansion. His big goal was essentially to open up a black hole at the center of Kepler to reach his promised ascension. You know, typical cult leader stuff. Alongside the Archon, we also have Maya Sundaresh, who has taken up the mantle of the Conductor. She pops up from time to time, but it seems like what she's working towards is more of a long-term goal that we won't see the resolutions for anytime soon. Which brings us to the big hook of the narrative, or at least for me, and that is the inclusion of the Nine. This is such a huge moment for Destiny players because the Nine have essentially been the boogeyman or Baba Yaga. We've always heard about them, but we've never actually seen one until now. The last mission of this game is narratively some top tier shit and has a moment that is straight out of Shadowkeep, where you turn that corner and you see that pyramid for the first time. Here in this expansion, you turn the corner and you physically get to see the dead body of a Nine. It's a really sick ass moment and adds for a great backdrop to that final fight with the Archon. It was one of those moments, it was so cool, you just gotta stop and you're like, I'm taking a screenshot of this. It's so cool. And after you take down the Archon, stopping him from opening up that singularity with the help of the derelict that Drifter's been hauling around for 7 years, we're left with a final parting message from 3, who is the Nine that ended up calling us to Kepler. And the message reads, "Bind the Nine." What that means, I have no damn clue. But for the first time in a long time, I am genuinely curious and excited to see where this narrative is going and how they can build that moving forward. The Nine are arguably the most underutilized race in the Destiny universe, and it's really nice to finally see them get the spotlight because they are the race we know the least amount about, and I truly believe Destiny is at its best when it can invoke that sense of mystery and intrigue, and I hope they can deliver that here moving forward, but I do worry that it might not be enough to bring back lapsed players and have a hard time attracting new ones. Once you've wrapped up with that main story on Kepler, you'll have a few things that you can go ahead and you can do. The first thing that you're going to notice and the game is going to push you towards on Kepler is the world tiers. Now, if you've played the Division 2 or Diablo 4, you'll have an idea of what world tiers are. If you don't, what they do is they increase the power level of the enemies around you and usually add some modifiers. But in return, the loot is going to be much better, and you're also going to have access to those higher tiers of armor in those higher world tiers. Just to note that once you do get to the Mythic world tier, you are going to want a fire team with you because those enemies are very tanky. Once you're happy with your world tier and want to do some exploring, you can find a lot of different side quests, usually around the different sectors of the map, usually pertaining to a particular NPC like Drifter, Orin, or Lodi. I'm not sure if these are meant to be played as they unlock through the main story, but I found it to be a lot easier to play through them as post-game content so that you weren't getting lost roaming around Kepler, which I did more than a few occasions, or just getting blocked off because you don't have the right destination abilities yet. The side quests themselves I thought were fun, but more often than not, they just involved you walking over to an area, interacting with an object, getting some dialogue, and then here and there you would go ahead and have to take out some enemies. Lodi's was probably the most interesting one out of all of these just because of the nature of his character and why he was there on Kepler. You also get access to the Graviton Spike exotic hand cannon quest, which does take you a little bit of time to get through, as well as doing the exotic perks and catalysts which are spread out across the map of Kepler. You also get access to an event called Deceive, which is a 3-player activity, but it is only available at certain times, so periodically check your map on Kepler to see if that's up and available for you to run. That's it when it comes to content for this expansion. I might be missing something. Please do note down in the comments if I am, but there's no new Crucible maps, there's no new strikes, and it's very bizarre when you consider the cost of this expansion is $40, and that was the same price of the Witch Queen. And when you compare those two, the Witch Queen has significantly more content, and I was maybe hoping that with the first weekly reset, maybe we'd get some more new content added, and unfortunately, that wasn't the case with week 2 rolling around and nothing was added. And as far as I know here with week 3, nothing was added as well. So if you really want to, this expansion is something that you could just hop in, buy it, and you could probably play through it in about a weekend or a week if you want to leisurely take your time and be done with all the side content. Which brings us to where you'll be spending a lot of your time post-campaign, and that is going to be the new Portal Hub. The Portal is Bungie's way at streamlining the game and the ways that you go about obtaining power level and loot. As someone with thousands of hours in this game, I never actually considered the power level grind to be confusing, and I just really knew what activities to run and how to raise that level. But the same can't be said for everyone, especially new players. So what you're able to do here is you're able to pick one of these selected choices. You've got solo ops, these are usually 5 to 10 minute missions. Then you have fire team ops, these are your strikes, your battlegrounds. You have a crucible tab, and then you also have a pinnacle tab. This is going to be the one that most people, myself included, have been running. These are exotic missions. You can do them solo or in a group, and they're going to give you the largest gains, and they're going to normally take you the longest amount of time. And each of these nodes can also be customized with different buffs and debuffs that are going to help you achieve that desired score threshold. The way that Bungie has streamlined that loot process here, I thought worked really well, but I do worry that it is essentially going to devalue anything outside of the portal just because it's not something that's going to raise your power level. So I'm sure over time they're going to add more activities as the weeks go on, but there are more options as well as you increase that power level higher. So it really just does boil down to what gear you want to focus on getting and how fast you want to get there. I've also seen the higher your power level is, it actually becomes a much worse experience as the enemies themselves get a lot tankier, meaning it just takes you longer to complete these missions. And why would you want to take all this time to complete those missions when you can just go play a much easier mission that'll give you basically the same amount of rewards? I also worry and can see it already that it's going to be very boring running these same missions over and over again just to raise your power level by one little notch, just to have it partially reset at the next season. One of my favorite aspects of Destiny has been that sense of progression and building up my character over time, and to see it all reset at the end of the season I think would be kind of deflating, and I personally suspect many changes are going to come to this portal system in the coming weeks and months, but I do think the portal system as a whole is a great thing to start out with. I just think it might need a little bit more time to fully flesh it out. Let's talk about the raid for the Edge of Fate. The one thing that I think many people expected to do was walk in on contest mode and absolutely smoke that thing, and then walk out with an emblem. And that couldn't have been further from the truth, with the Desert Perpetual clocking in as the 3rd longest raid race in Destiny 2 history. It was safe to say that if you cleared this one, you were a certified gamer. Well, that's if you completed it legit. There was a document that was published in the middle of writing and editing this video that stated over 70% of all contest clears had cheated in some way, shape, or form. And to those people, I have just one word.
Shame. Shame.
Okay, maybe a couple, but I rightfully hope that Bungie takes action and bans those people who cheated and played with them personally, because it was a really solid raid race to watch from a viewer experience, and I think it's a damn shame to have all those clears inflated by people who clearly didn't deserve it. The raid also wasn't without its bugs or glitches aside from the actual cheater issue that ruined many people's legit runs, enemies getting stuck under the map, players getting stuck under the map, so I do wonder if Bungie is going to consider pulling a Vow of Disciple where they open it up again for a weekend here in the future, but I'm not really sure about that. The raid itself is really cool visually. It takes place within the dead body of a giant 9. And visually, Destiny 2's raid teams have always really knocked it out of the park, and that's something that they consistently do is craft and create those unique spaces that are just like, holy shit. You can only really get those moments here within this game. I do hope to get to run the raid here soon. I've been busy with life, trying to find a new job, and personally it's challenging getting 6 people I know together for a full clear, but One day, I hope to do so. So as we reach the end of the video, I'll ask the question, is the Edge of Fate worth it? Obviously, I'm going to lean towards the answer being yes, but I think that is a little bit because of my bias for the game. I also don't think that it comes without some caveats or pain points. I do think that this is narratively a great job that they've done here, and what they've done is also tee up that future while still leaving a lot of mystery to be solved and unraveled over the coming years. Lodi I thought was a great addition to the game. He's like the anti-Nimbus because we all know how that character's received, and I think it's really awesome to see him received really positively. And being able to pull back a lot of the lore and story around one of the most mysterious races in the Destiny 2 universe was a huge win for me, and I suspect many other hardcore fans. From a gameplay side of things, I think this is probably where I had the most issues. The destination abilities on Kepler were pretty annoying at first, and I like to think that it's just due to how much you're forced to use them at times early on. And I will say, as I played more and more, I started to come around to liking them a lot. It also helps when you've learned that map of Kepler, because it can get a little confusing, and I got lost on more than a few occasions. The change in power level and scaling is also something that could be felt right away when you dropped into that legendary campaign. Enemies in general seem like their health pools have been doubled or tripled in some cases, or we just aren't doing as much damage as we're used to, and this point is further exacerbated when you start to creep up into those fabled and mythic tiers on Kepler. I do appreciate Bungie taking big swings with this destination and trying to make it feel holistically different from anything we've experienced in the past, and for what it's worth, I do think I like this destination as a whole after finishing the main story. I just personally wish that there was a little bit more to do post-campaign other than the exotic hand cannon quest and a few side missions. Besides running the expansion on all three characters, a majority of my time has been devoted to the portal, which I think is a great way for Bungie to streamline that loot and power gain process, but it doesn't come without its issues, and with plenty of activities being nerfed or outright removed, ability modifiers that make the process faster being removed, it once again feels like we're in a learning and reacting state of Destiny, where Bungie's trying out new things and how the content's delivered, and how they go about structuring the loot grind, and then us, the players, are finding ways to just blow through and abuse that content in ways they might not have thought about. The raid race was another story of its own. Contest mode was brutal this year, and I mean brutal. I didn't get to make an attempt at all. To any of the teams that did finish the raid legit, you guys are gamers. If you cheated, you're a piece of shit, and I hope you get banned. Bungie seems to have the framework and the ideas of where they want to take the franchise and how they can move it forward in the future. My only worry is that are enough people going to stick around for that? The final shape peaked at over 300,000 concurrent players, and the Edge of Fate was only able to hit about 100,000. And with that only being a third of what your previous highs were, you do wonder what's in store for the future of Destiny and the franchise as a whole. Destiny 2 is a game, personally, I'll play it till the lights go out. Season in, season out, I'll be there to experience the content. I just wonder if others will do the same. If you did enjoy the video, consider dropping it a like and consider subscribing and clicking that notification bell so you can catch all my upcoming reviews and previews. And if you fancy it, consider becoming a member. I don't have anything on there right now, but it's just a thing to say, hey, I appreciate what you're doing, or I like what you're doing. You throw a few bucks my way. In the next few months, we've got Mafia: The Old Country coming out August 8th. We've got Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater on August 28th. And then we also have Borderlands 4 launching on September 12th. Assassin's Creed's DLC is also coming out in September. And then Dying Light: The Beast, which was originally slated for August, has now been pushed back to September 19th. So if any of those games interest you here, stick around. I'd love to have you here on the channel. And as always, if you did make it this far, I just want to say thank you for taking the time out of your day. And this has been my review for the Destiny 2 expansion, The Edge of Fate. Thank you for watching.
And every choice you make will lead you here. To who you're supposed to be. Eyes up, weapon.